My parents put me on a greyhound bus at 15 and told me to figure it out because my brother needed better cleats. They didn't call it abuse, they called it an investment. This is a story of family betrayal, extreme family drama, and the kind of revenge and justice that only happens when the child they discarded becomes the one holding all the power. My parents threw me out on the streets at 15 just to funnel every spare cent into my brother's athletic career. My name is Lillian Taylor. I was the extra mouth to feed. I was the budget cut my parents made to afford better cleats for their golden boy. It wasn't just that they loved my brother, Caleb, more than me. That would have been painful but manageable. It was that they viewed us as investments. Caleb was the high-yield stock, the lottery ticket, the future NFL superstar who was going to buy them a mansion and a boat. I was the liability. I was book-smart, quiet, and unassuming. In their eyes, those traits didn't pay the bills, and they certainly didn't put the family name in the lights. Caleb was 2 years older than me, and by the time he was 17, he was a local legend, the high school football star. The scouts were sniffing around. Every dinner conversation revolved around his protein intake, his yardage, his psychological state. If Caleb had a bad practice, the whole house walked on eggshells. If Caleb needed new gear, the electricity bill went unpaid. I learned to be invisible. I learned to eat less so there would be more steak for the athlete. I learned that my straight A's were an annoyance because my celebration of them interrupted Caleb's game tape review. But the real break happened when Caleb got invited to an elite out-of-state training camp. It was one of those prestige programs that guaranteed a fast track to a Division I scholarship. The cost was astronomical. It was thousands of dollars a month, plus travel, plus specialized coaching fees. My parents were working class. My dad was a mechanic. My mom worked retail. They didn't have that kind of money. I remember the night everything changed. I was sitting at the kitchen table doing homework. I was 15. It was a Tuesday. My parents sat down across from me, and they didn't look sad. They looked pragmatic. They looked like they were discussing selling a used car. My father did the talking. He said, "Lillian, we have to make some changes. Caleb has a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. This camp is going to secure his future, and by extension, the family's future." I nodded, expecting them to tell me we were cutting cable or that I couldn't go on the school field trip. I was ready to sacrifice. I was always ready to sacrifice. Then my mother spoke up, refusing to make eye contact. She said, "We can't afford the camp and the household expenses with 4 people. We've run the numbers, Lillian. We just can't do it. We found a room for you at your aunt's place in the city." My aunt? My father's sister lived in a condemned building 3 hours away. It wasn't a home, it was a hazard. I protested. I cried. I told them I would get a job. I told them I would stop eating dinner entirely. My father slammed his hand on the table. He told me to stop being selfish. He said, "Your brother is going to be a star. Do you want to be the reason he fails? Do you want to be the anchor dragging this family down? You're 15. You're old enough to figure it out. This is a temporary hardship for a permanent victory."
If you are enjoying the story, please like and subscribe. Also, please comment as your feedback helps to improve the stories coming next.
They gave me 2 trash bags for my clothes. They didn't even drive me to my aunt's house. They put me on a greyhound bus the next morning. When I arrived at my aunt's address, the building was boarded up. She had been evicted months ago. I called my parents from a payphone, sobbing, begging them to come get me. My father answered. He heard my panic. He heard that I was on the street in a dangerous city. And he said, and I quote, "Stop the drama, Lillian. We can't come get you. Caleb has practice. Figure it out." Then he hung up. I didn't hear from them again. I spent the first 3 nights sleeping in a 24-hour laundromat until the owner kicked me out. I learned very quickly that the world does not care about a crying teenage girl. I learned that tears exhaust you, and hydration costs money. I clawed my way into a youth shelter, but it was overcrowded and violent. I lied about my age to get a job washing dishes at a diner off the highway. I worked double shifts, eating the scraps off plates that customers left behind. I dropped out of high school because I couldn't attend classes and work enough hours to rent a room in a boarding house. But I didn't stop learning. I spent every free second in the public library. I got my GED. I studied finance, business law, and economics from books I pulled off the shelves while hiding from the rain. I realized that my parents were right about one thing: money is power. But they were wrong about the source. It wasn't physical talent, it was leverage. I worked my way up from dishwasher to waitress, from waitress to manager. I saved every penny. I invested with a savagery that scared people. I took risks. I started a small consulting firm from a laptop I bought at a pawn shop. I had a chip on my shoulder the size of a mountain. Every time I was tired, every time I wanted to quit, I pictured Caleb in his shiny uniform and my parents cheering in the stands, living off the sacrifice of my safety. Fast forward 15 years. I am 30 years old. My consulting firm morphed into the Global Excellence Board, a private equity and philanthropic conglomerate.
We control endowments. We decide which startups get funded and which athletes get rescued from bankruptcy. I am the gatekeeper. I kept tabs on them, of course. You can't hate someone that much without tracking their progress. Caleb's career didn't go the way they planned. He played college ball, sure, but he blew out his knee in his junior year. He never made the pros. He never got the multi-million-dollar contract. He became a gym teacher, then a car salesman, then unemployed. He developed a gambling problem. He got used to the high life my parents tried to buy him, and he couldn't adjust to being average. My parents drained their retirement savings trying to prop him up. They mortgaged their house. They were drowning. Which brings us to last week. My secretary, a sharp woman named Elena, brought me a file. She said, "Miss Taylor, we have an application for the Phoenix Grant. It's a hardship fund for former athletes looking to pivot their careers or start businesses. The applicant claims to be a former top prospect whose career was cut short by injury. He's asking for $1 million to start a sports training facility." I looked at the name on the file. Caleb Taylor. I opened the dossier. There were letters of recommendation from his high school coach from 15 years ago. There was a sob story essay written by my mother detailing the tragedy of his lost potential, and there was a financial statement showing they were on the brink of complete insolvency. They had no idea I was the chairwoman. I operate under my married name professionally, or simply as L. Taylor in correspondence. And frankly, they never cared enough to see what became of me. To them, I was just the trash they took out. I told Alina to schedule the meeting. I told her to bring them into the main boardroom, the one with the mahogany table that seats 20, the one with the view of the entire city skyline. I wanted them to see the empire the liability had built. This morning, at 10 a.m. sharp, they walked in. I was standing by the window with my back to them. I heard the heavy door click shut. I heard the shuffle of their feet on the plush carpet. "Hello?" my father's voice called out. It sounded older, rougher. "We're here to see the director." I waited a beat. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. I wasn't the scared 15-year-old girl at the bus station anymore. I was the shark in the tank. I turned around slowly. "Please have a seat," I said, keeping my face neutral. They sat. My mother looked haggard, her hair dyed a cheap shade of blonde to hide the gray. My father was stooped, wearing a suit that was clearly 20 years old and too tight around the waist. And Caleb. He sat in the middle. He looked bloated, his face puffy, wearing a track jacket that had seen better days. He looked bored, like he was entitled to this money just for showing up. They stared at me. There was no recognition in their eyes. Not yet. I was wearing a tailored Italian suit, my hair was sleek and styled, and I carried myself with an authority they had never associated with their daughter. Plus, it had been 15 years. I was a child when they discarded me. Now, I was a woman. "I've reviewed your application," I said, sitting at the head of the table. I didn't introduce myself. "The Phoenix Grant is highly competitive. We only award it to individuals who demonstrate exceptional character and a history of overcoming genuine adversity.
My mother leaned forward, putting on her best sympathetic mom face. Oh, yes, Director. Our Caleb has been through so much. He was destined for the NFL. He was a prodigy. But bad luck, just bad luck took it all away. He just needs a chance to give back to the community. To give back, I repeated flatly. Interesting. The application mentions that the family made significant sacrifices to support his early career. Could you elaborate on that? My father puffed out his chest. We gave everything, every dime. We went without vacations, without new cars. We dedicated our lives to his talent because we knew he was special. We are a family that sticks together no matter what. I felt a cold smile tugging at the corner of my mouth. Sticks together. That's a beautiful sentiment. So there were no other costs? No other family members who had to sacrifice? Caleb shifted in his seat. Look, lady, are you going to give me the money or not? I got a business plan. I know sports. I'm a winner. I just need the capital. A winner, I mused. I opened the file in front of me and pulled out a single sheet of paper. It wasn't part of his application. It was a printout of an old police report from the night I was found sleeping in the laundromat, listed as a runaway because my parents hadn't even reported me missing. I have a question about the household composition in 2008, I said. Records indicate there was a second child, a daughter, Lillian. The air left the room instantly. My mother went pale. My father froze. Caleb frowned, looking confused, as if trying to remember a dream he had once. She ran away. My mother stammered. Troubled girl, very troubled. We tried our best, but she chose a different path. We haven't seen her in years. She was a bad seed, my father added quickly, his voice rising in defense. Jealous of Caleb, couldn't handle his success. She left on her own. It broke our hearts, but we had to focus on the child who wanted to be there. I closed the file. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the silent room. That is a lie, I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it was absolute. Excuse me? My father stood up, his face turning red. How dare you call me a liar? You don't know us. You don't know what we went through. I know exactly what you went through, and I know exactly what she went through, because I didn't run away. You packed my clothes in trash bags. You drove me to the bus station. You told me I was a financial burden, and when I called you from a payphone, terrified and homeless, you told me to figure it out.
I stood up then, placing my hands flat on the table. Hello, Mom. Hello, Dad. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. My mother let out a strangled gasp. She brought her hands to her mouth. My father slowly sank back into his chair, his eyes bulging. Caleb looked from them to me, his jaw dropping. Lillian? My mother whispered. No, it can't be. Look at you. Yes, look at me, I said, spreading my arms to gesture at the boardroom, the city view, the trappings of immense wealth. I'm the investment you threw in the garbage. I'm the liability, and now I'm the CEO of the board you are begging for money. You run this? Caleb asked, his voice cracking. You're the director? I own it, I corrected. I built it from the ground up. While you were throwing interceptions, I was reading financial reports in a homeless shelter. While you were gambling away Mom and Dad's retirement, I was acquiring assets. My father tried to pivot. It was pathetic to watch. He forced a smile that looked more like a grimace. Lillian, my God, look at you. We always knew you had it in you. We knew you were tough. That's why we did it, you know? Tough love. We knew you could handle the real world. We were preparing you. Don't, I snapped. Do not insult my intelligence. You didn't do it for me. You did it for him. I pointed a manicured finger at Caleb. And now, here we are. You're broke, he's washed up, and I have the power to sign a check that would solve all your problems or call security and have you thrown out on the street exactly like you did to me. My mother started crying. Real tears this time. Tears of fear. Lillian, please, we're your family. We made mistakes. We were desperate, but we're drowning.
Your brother, he has nothing. We're going to lose the house. Please, you have so much. Just help us." I looked at them. I looked at the people who were supposed to protect me, the people who chose a game over their daughter's life. I felt a surge of anger, but it was cold, controlled. "I am going to approve the grant," I said. They looked up, shocked. Hope flooded their faces. "Thank you, thank you," my mother sobbed. "I knew you still loved us. I knew it." "Sit down," I barked. "I haven't finished." I pressed a button on the intercom. "Elena, bring in the legal team and the videographer." The door opened and 3 lawyers walked in, followed by a man with a professional camera setup. My parents looked around nervously. "Here are the terms," I said, sliding a thick contract across the table. "I will grant Caleb the $1 million. It will be put in a trust, managed by my firm, to ensure he doesn't gamble it away. It will pay for his debts and the startup of his business. But there is a price." "Anything," Caleb said. "Anything." "The price is the truth," I said. "This grant is contingent upon a full, public disclosure of your family history. You are going to sit in front of that camera right now, and you are going to confess. You will state your names. You will state that you kicked your 15-year-old daughter out of the house to fund your son's sports career. You will admit that you abandoned her to homelessness. You will admit that you lied about her running away to save your own reputations." I can't do that," my father stammered. "Lillian, that will ruin us. Our friends, the church, the neighbors, everyone thinks you were the problem. If we tell them we did that, we'll be pariahs." "That is the price," I said, leaning forward. "You want the money to save your golden boy? Then you have to destroy the lie that protects him. You have to destroy your reputation to save his future. That is the sacrifice. You were willing to sacrifice me for him. Now be willing to sacrifice yourselves for him." "Lillian, please," my mother begged. "This is cruel." "Cruel?" I laughed, a harsh, sharp sound. "Cruel is watching your parents drive away while you stand on a curb with a trash bag. Cruel is eating leftovers from strangers' plates. This is just a business transaction. You have a commodity. The truth. I am willing to buy it for $1 million. I looked at the clock. You have 5 minutes to decide. If you walk out that door, you get nothing. The offer expires. Caleb goes bankrupt, you lose your house, and I go back to work." The room was silent for a long time. I watched them struggle. I watched my father weigh his pride against his son's comfort. I watched my mother weigh her social standing against her financial ruin. I watched Caleb, selfish to the end, nudge my father and whisper, "Dad, we need the money. Just say it. Who cares? Just say it." That was the final knife in their hearts. Hearing their golden child, the one they sacrificed everything for, demand they humiliate themselves for his benefit. They realized, in that moment, what kind of man they had raised, and they realized what kind of woman they had thrown away. "We'll do it," my father whispered, his head hanging low. The next hour was the most satisfying hour of my life. I sat behind the camera as they were prepped. My lawyers made them sign sworn affidavits first, ensuring they couldn't retract the statement later without committing perjury. Then the red light on the camera turned on. "State your name," I commanded from the shadows. "Robert Taylor," my father said, his voice shaking. "Martha Taylor," my mother whispered. "And what did you do to your daughter Lillian in 2008? My father looked into the lens. He looked old, broken. We evicted her. She was 15. We chose to use our resources for our son's football career. We abandoned her. We refused to help her when she called for help." "And why did you lie about it?" I asked. "Because we were ashamed," my mother sobbed. "Because we wanted people to think we were good parents. Because we prioritized Caleb over everything." "And who is responsible for Lillian's success?" I asked. They paused. They looked at me, sitting in my designer suit, holding the pen that would sign their check. "Lillian is," my father said softly. "Only Lillian. We gave her nothing but pain. She built this despite us." When the recording was done, I had the check ready. I slid it across the table to Caleb. He grabbed it without looking at me, his eyes only on the zeros. He didn't care about their humiliation, he only cared about the cash. My parents stood up. They looked hollowed out. What are you going to do with the video?" my father asked. "The terms of the Phoenix grant required transparency," I said coolly. "This video will be uploaded to the Foundation's public website under the Stories of Resilience section. It will be sent to the local newspaper in your hometown as part of the press release announcing the grant. Everyone will know. The church, the neighbors, the old coaches, everyone." "Lillian, you can't," my mother wailed. "We'll have to move. We'll be shamed." "You told me to figure it out when I was 15, I said, standing up to signal the meeting was over. "I'm sure you can figure this out. You have $1 million after all. Though, knowing Caleb, I doubt it will last long." I walked to the door and held it open for them. "Goodbye, Mother. Goodbye, Father. Do not contact me again. The next time you see me, it will be on the news." They walked out past me. My father couldn't meet my eyes. My mother was weeping into a tissue. Caleb was already on his phone, probably looking up new cars. I closed the door. I walked back to the window and looked out at the city. I felt a lightness in my chest that had been missing for 15 years. I hadn't just gotten revenge. I had forced them to acknowledge my existence, my worth, and their own failure. I had bought their confession with the very success they tried to prevent. I picked up the phone. "Elena, upload the video and send a copy to the editor of the Hometown Gazette. Mark it for immediate release." My parents wanted a return on their investment. They got one. They got exactly what they paid for. And I finally got the one thing they never gave me, the truth. My name is Lillian Taylor. I am the CEO of the Global Excellence Board. And today, I closed the biggest deal of my life. Family betrayal doesn't always end quietly. Sometimes it ends with accountability. If you want more family drama, karma, and stories where power shifts completely, hit subscribe.